Welcome, everyone, back with Star Wars Collectors Spotlight. I'm here with Tyson Scott. Tyson, thanks for being here today. Excited to have you here, man.
Thanks for having me.
So, we are going to start off with, where do you hail from?
So born in Seattle, actually Tacoma, and then my dad was in the Air Force, so we moved around a little bit. Did a lot of growing up in Sacramento, California, and now I've been living in San Diego for about 13 years now.
West Coast.
West Coast, yep. Avoided LA. Wanted to avoid LA, so I jumped that bubble. Yeah.
Good. I wouldn't want to live in LA. I like visiting, but I don't know if I want to live there.
Man.
Let's get right into it. What are you primarily collecting, like Star Wars wise?
So historically, I've always had my Decipher CCG stuff. I collected it pretty heavily up until maybe like 2000 or so. That's when I graduated high school. So moving off to college, the collecting kind of fell to the side. I just stayed at my parents' house. There have been a couple times, I'd say, since 2000 to recently, where I've just had the urge. I picked it up. Like, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I got online and found like a quote unquote cheap box of Coruscant that I decided to split with my brother. So we just went halves on it and got that for much cheaper. I think it was, I don't know, 600 or 700 bucks. We got like a box of Coruscant. I also got like a DS2 box at that time. I was buying singles of the stuff that I didn't have. So, foil AI mall and, some of the higher priced AI stuff, that I didn't pull out of packs. I was buying that, in singles for, I went back and looked at it recently and it's so cheap back then, when I got it than it is now.
Did you finish your master set?
I did. So I've got like a black border. So I was almost done with a full master set myself. Then I saw one on eBay. I want to say like maybe 6 or 7 years ago for about $3,000, I think it was. And I pulled the trigger on that, even though I didn't need everything there. It was a full master set from one individual that included all tournament foils, all AIs, all foils from seasons 1 through 3. It didn't have white border stuff and it didn't have Japanese stuff, but at that time, my gut told me, hey, this would be a good buy to have. So I say that right now I've got between 1 and 2 master sets. So yeah, Decipher CCG has pretty much been, my home base, since I started pulling packs, when I was in high school, back Premier through about Cloud City, Jabba's Palace, maybe a little bit beyond that, and then started getting ready for college and stuff, and stopped collecting really. And that's when I stopped playing too. I was playing more hobby. I didn't do any like serious tournaments or anything like that, but I played for fun. Probably for the first 3 or 4 years that the game was released.
Yeah, because now the master set's worth what, 14,000 maybe? Like
yeah. I mean, it seems like a good investment. I never bought it and with an intention of selling it. It's one of those things where it's probably my pride and joy, nerdy hobby, I guess I'd say right now, where I don't really have a lot of friends that do it in the Facebook group. I've got some, friends, I guess, in the Facebook group that, enjoy the hobby too. But outside of that, I didn't really have like many, friends in high school that did it. It was more of a personal thing that I did. It's definitely, grown in value, I guess. And that's usually what I have to enforce with my wife, who is very conscious of how much money that I put into, the hobby. And, most recently, I'd say in the last 2 years, I've really moved over once I got all the, Decipher CCG black border non-Japanese stuff that I wanted. I got enticed into the autograph collecting side of it. So I'd say over the last 2 years, that's where I've probably put, oh man, so much money that I don't even want to say. But, over the last 2 years, I've really focused on trying to get autographed copies. Since I had duplicates of most of the cards, I've been focusing on, character versions of the Decipher stuff. I sent in for, the Queen Amidala stuff in Coruscant. I got the AI and the base version signed by Natalie Portman when SWAU had Natalie Portman on docket. I went up to LA and met Ray Park and got the AI, non-AI, of course, signed as well. So, I've bought some stuff through the assigned CCG group, some pretty high value stuff through there. Obviously find, hits or misses on eBay. But so I'd say the last 2 years, that's where my focus has been on, is getting, some of these cards signed, either buy them if, the folks have passed on, or send stuff in through private signings and get those returned. And then, I turn around and slab all those. So I've got a slab case with, pretty much all the autographs that I've got right now.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, on a scale of like 1 to 10, how emotionally invested are you into your collection?
I'd say it's pretty high up there. It's probably, I've thought about it, fairly regularly. If there's a fire or something in the house, I'm definitely going to get, I've got a wife and 2 kids. They're my priority. Aside from that, it's pretty much near the top. If it's something that, I need to get out quickly, that's probably my most prized material, possession is my Star Wars CCG stuff. I don't have a whole lot of other material type items that I'd say, I'd lose sleep over if I lost it. So my collection would probably be number one after family.
So, what are your collecting goals at the moment?
So right now I think I've made pretty good headway over the last 2 years on the autographed end. There's ones that are going to be, very difficult to achieve that I don't have. It's a waiting game. Stuff like
Are you going for like all the mains or just
as
anyone you
many
can
as
get
I
your
can. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. Some of the guys in the group, they collect stuff that's like, tertiary character that you see in the background on like a CCG card. They really go after all that stuff, and not that I won't eventually get there, but when you're first starting out, obviously my goals were to get the big mains, Luke and Leia and Han, and then
right.
expand from there. So I've focused on the ones that I know are gonna be the most valuable, the ones that are probably going to be the most sought after. So that's been my focus. If other smaller characters come up and they're autographed and vetted, I try and do my best, obviously, to make sure that they're authenticated. So I usually like buying slabbed stuff if it's got, at least been through like a BAS or a PSA kind of thing, even though I know there will be folks that'll slap my wrist on the signed CCG side that, will say, hey, buy the autograph, don't buy the authenticator, which is definitely true. But those do give you a little bit of a more, warm, fuzzy feeling if it already comes in a slabbed, from a reputable. I pretty much only look at like BAS or I don't even really look at PSA for Star Wars autographs. Thankfully, most of the stuff I've bought has been, BAS encapsulated. If it's slabbed already, I
So, is it important that the autograph is on a CCG card or just
yeah.
autographs in general?
Nope, I'm only CCG. So pretty much Decipher CCG has been my bread and butter, the only thing I collect. I have recently expanded into getting a couple of like TCG signed and a couple of like I don't collect. So I have started recently because I feel like I've hit a little bit of a stalemate in the Decipher end. I have started collecting just the base and foil sets of the Star Wars TCG stuff, just because I really like the variability of the character cards that are pictured there. Never played the game, don't know how to play it, but they just offered a lot more images on the cards that I felt like they really enticed me, stuff that I love Decipher. That'll be, the one that I cherish the most. But this Star Wars TCG by Wizards of the Coast, I feel like a lot of the images they captured on there really appealed to me. They also covered, episodes 1 through 3 on there, which was, appealing since Decipher missed out on being able to offer that. So I'd say right now for, biding my time, I'm kind of getting into the Star Wars TCG just to collect that. But the autograph stuff I'd say is like my primary right now. It's always enticing when you see somebody list like a foil mall AI or something like that. It's always enticing to get another one for the collection, and that's usually where I just have to come to terms with reality and say that's not the best way that I should spend some limited form of budget. I should probably wait until hopefully I'm hoping, I think everybody's hoping that Mark Hamill will do another autograph signing. I heard or saw that he just did a Topps. Somebody posted that he did like a signing for Topps, a new one where looked like it was stickered or whatever. But I think people are holding out hope that maybe that'll be the beginning of the snowball rolling to where maybe he'll set down for a private signing or something. So that's the last one that I'm really missing. I don't have a Hamill autograph in my collection. I've got a couple Carrie Fishers. I bought a Alec Guinness on the Black Border premiere.
Ooh.
And then I've been able to get a few of like the episode 1 characters like Natalie Portman and Ray Park, and sent in for like Anthony Daniels and Ian recently.
Yeah, it's good you can still get them because, I mean, Kenny Baker, Peter Mayhew, Carrie Fisher.
Right.
I mean,
Yep.
even Harrison Ford's not gone, but it's not cheap to
I
get
know.
those autos, and same with
I
Natalie
know.
Portman too.
Yep. I
They're
forked over.
asking a lot for
Yeah.
that.
Ford's done a handful
But
of
then
signings.
there's some of those tertiary characters you can get really cheap.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. You ready for my Star Wars opinion blitz questions here?
I think so. Hopefully, I mean, I like Star Wars and I love collecting.
Okay.
I'm probably a jack of the trades. I'm not going to be able to. I don't know. Hopefully, they're not like huge quiz questions.
We'll see where this goes. Okay.
All right.
Well, I'm gonna start really easy here. What's your all time favorite Star Wars movie and why?
I guess I'd have to say probably episode 4. I like episodes 4, 5, and 6 just because those are the first ones that I got to see. They really introduced me to the Star Wars universe. I'd have to pick them. Harrison Ford, I think, and Han Solo is my favorite character out of those. I just thought he was witty. He was funny. He was a fun character to watch, in my opinion. So Han Solo is my favorite, and those were my first 3 episodes. That I was able to see. I didn't gravitate very well.
What's the one? Pick one.
Well, so I guess Empire Strikes Back would be my favorite. I like the Hoth stuff. I like the snow. I like I like that one the best probably.
Okay. What is your favorite Jedi and what qualities make them stand out for you?
I think my favorite would have to be Yoda again because he was one of the first ones that I got exposed to, and he was just the wise one. He's the one that you felt always had the answer and was going to do the prudent thing. I really like Sam Jackson too, just because, not really for his Star Wars role, but I think I've warmed up to, I like him probably based on roles that he's had in other shows. Just, I considered sending in, he just did a signing. I considered sending in a card and just, I wanted to have him put like a bad MF on there or something like that, but I don't know if he would have done it. But I'd say Yoda for Star Wars reasons, and then Sam Jackson, I just like him because some of the other roles that he plays.
Okay. Which lightsaber color would you choose for yourself and why?
So I think I've got 2. Personally, I'm a Seahawks fan, so neon green. If I have a chance to do anything in neon green, I usually do neon green. Like my slab case is neon green. That's usually a color that I'll do just because it stands out, and I'm a big Seattle sports fan. I'd probably have to say that one, neon green.
Good looking color. I spent 3 years in Seattle myself, so I'm familiar with it.
Nice.
What is your favorite starship in the Star Wars universe, and what appeals to you about it?
I think I'd have to say the Executor, and partly I think because of the CCG card that went sideways on it. It just looked like a big, mean, badass starship. So I would have to say the Executor just for that reason. I feel like it stands out, well above the rest. And so that would be my favorite. It's one of my favorite cards too, just because it was sideways. I like how they turned it sideways to just emphasize its size.
Yeah, you're like, it's so big, it's not going to fit.
Yep. Pretty awesome.
Okay, if you could have any force power, which one would you choose, and how would you use it?
That's a good one. Force power. I don't know. I think I haven't thought about that one, so I guess I'd probably pick something that's relatively boring. Using the force to move the stones or something. Maybe help me do some yard work around the house, or it's a pretty dad. I've got a 2-year-old and 5-year-old, so my stuff's probably going to be more dad joke related than anything else, and so I probably use the force to just help me get some of my chores done and free up some time for other things.
Okay. Which Star Wars planet would you most like to visit, and what draws you about that place?
So I think there's 2 that came to mind. One would be Bespin Cloud City. And I think I just like the fact that it was, the big, tower in the sky and the clouds that, it just looked unique. It's got this very thin kind of base to it, and then it bubbles up, and it's got almost like the Space Needle in Seattle, where it's just at the top of a big tower. And it's, I would probably say that one. I guess Coruscant would be another one that there's just something mysterious about Coruscant, and it's a lot of the high profile people are there, and I'm kind of basing a lot of this off like the Andor series and stuff, where it just looks like there's a lot of important people floating around. You're going to bump shoulders with somebody that means something, and so I'd say between those 2, and probably I'd pick the Bespin Cloud City.
Okay. Yeah, no, I can't argue with that there. Those would both be awesome places. Okay, who is your favorite Star Wars villain, and what makes them so compelling?
I think I'd have to pick the Emperor. I think, again, he's one of the first ones that I saw and commanded Darth Vader. Darth Vader, he molded Darth Vader. So I'd have to play him. Yeah, I'd have to pick Emperor Palpatine. And he came from, episodes 1 through 3, where you see him as Senator Palpatine, and I guess he just had good gameplay. I guess he was able to, do what he did for himself, starting out as the senator and deceiving all those folks. And so, yeah, I'd say Palpatine.
He's the ultimate chess master.
Yep.
Okay, which droid from the Star Wars saga do you find the most endearing and why?
Probably R2. I don't know. He seemed to, I guess, be there and save the day, a handful of times, and you could count on him, when time was tight. Working
Okay.
the controls on the doors and stuff. I'd say he'd be the one that I'd pick, R2.
Well, it'd probably help you with the yard work too.
Definitely. Yeah.
What is your favorite lightsaber duel in the entire Star Wars franchise, and what makes it special?
I'd have to say Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. And I think that it was the sacrificial part of Obi-Wan that I thought was just, good rising above. And yeah, so that one really resonated with me, the Obi-Wan sacrifice.
Okay. If you were to join either Rebel Alliance or Galactic Empire, which side would you choose and why?
Oh, I'd have to go with the Rebel Alliance. Just, I feel like I'm just a big proponent, always try and do what's right, even if it feels like a losing battle. I just, I think that's where my intentions are. Like, I'll join the losing side, even, if I know that that's the right thing to do. So that would be a no-brainer. I'd be on the good side.
Okay. Who's your favorite non-human character in Star Wars, and what about them resonates with you?
The one that came to mind, and I'm assuming that I don't know if he's considered human or not, would be Dr. Evazan.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
I
he's not
think,
human.
yeah, I don't know what class alien he
Some
was.
kind of humanoid.
Yeah,
Like,
but I think him partly because he's somebody that's on my hit list right now for signed CCG. So he's just been in the back of my mind, I think, for probably the last 2 months, and so he's the first one that came to mind. And he's wanted on 12 systems, or I forget how many systems, but he's just an interesting character. He's somebody that I think I'd want to learn a little bit more about his backstory, something that I didn't, I haven't researched a whole lot about him, but he seems like he's got a pretty interesting maybe spin-off. I don't know if he's a big enough character to have a spin-off, but he's somebody that I think I'd want to read some of the books. I haven't read any Star Wars books, so most of my Star Wars knowledge is going to be based on the mainstream, films that have been released. But he's somebody that I'd be interested in reading more of a backstory about.
yeah, that'd be pretty crazy. Like, he has this just extensive backstory of just causing people harm, like just maybe like a Dr. Mengele or something, like just some really bad dude, and like Obi-Wan just takes him out and like just has new meaning.
Right. Yep. Very interesting.
What is your favorite line or quote from Star Wars films, and why does it resonate with you? And if you don't have like necessarily a specific quote, I'll accept short little scene.
So I think one of my more recent favorites, and I forget if it was episode 7, 8, or 9, but I think it's John Boyega and Harrison Ford getting ready to break into one of the Imperial sites, and they don't know how they're going to do it. But John Boyega, or Boyega says, "I know, we'll just use the Force." And Harrison Ford turns around and he's like, "That's not how that works." And it's the first one that came to mind, but it's one that I laugh at every single time that I see it. I thought it was a pretty funny one. So, for lack of
that is actually
a better
funny
one coming to mind, I think that's one of my favorites to see.
Okay. I would never have guessed that, but that's hilarious. Yeah. If you could have a mentor from the Star Wars universe, who would you choose and what wisdom would you seek from them?
I probably have to pick Yoda just because he seems like one of the wisest. Obviously lived to be 900 or something years old. So he's probably seen a lot, has, arguably some of the most experience out of all of them. Obviously, I said I'd be on the rebel side. So, if I were going to get a mentor of some sort, I'd probably want it to be on the rebel Jedi side. And so I guess that's probably the safe bet would be Yoda.
Okay. What was your favorite Star Wars spin-off standalone film from the Disney era, and why?
I really liked Rogue One, the movie. I really liked Rogue One. I liked, how they, put it right there before episode 4, to where it connected in pretty well. As far as spinoff, the one that I liked most recently would also be the Andor series. I think Andor series was my favorite spinoff. And then, I started watching the Boba Fett's and Book of Boba Fett, and I think I liked Boba Fett for a while, and then I just after a couple of seasons, I think it was I lost the ability to watch it. I just ran out of time. I barely started Book of Boba Fett, I think, but I really liked Andor, and then Obi-Wan. I think would be how I would rank those, Andor and then Obi-Wan. So
Okay. Which Star Wars species or alien race do you find the most fascinating, and why?
oh
Like a Wampa guy, like a Twilight guy? Who knows?
yeah, I mean, kind of a boring answer. I guess the Dr. Evazan, whatever he is right now, he's probably the one that I find the most interesting. Do you know what kind of alien he is?
I have no idea what he is. It's all part of the. We'll just call it whatever he is.
Yeah.
What is your favorite lightsaber design or hilt style? And what attracts you to that design?
You know what? I don't follow the hilts too much or the lightsabers. I know there's a lot of folks out there that collect them and get them signed, and that's just one area that I've never even looked them up online. I think there's a mad rush at Disneyland in L.A. Or Orange County, I guess. Like a year ago, everybody was coming out of like the Star Wars store with these big cases, and I was like, "What are you guys buying in there?" And it was some sort of a Star Wars saber release. I don't know what it was, but it was super popular at the time, and
Is
obviously,
it the dark saber?
I don't know. I mean, I forget what the person said, but since I didn't, I haven't really studied the lightsabers, and I don't collect them, so I have no idea what it was. But part of me was like, well, should I go in there and get one? Maybe this is something cool I can hang up. I'm very conscious about space right now. With the family that I've got, cards are very easy to collect and store, so that's one of the attractions for me. When I start, getting into like any of the prop type stuff, I just get worried about, preserving it. One, making sure that it doesn't get damaged, and two, where am I gonna keep it? Am I gonna display it? Am I gonna store it in a closet? So I avoid props just because I don't really know how I'd store them, and feel like it'd be a slippery slope, and I'd have to get my own house or something.
So my guess would be either Qui-Gon's or Skywalker's second lightsaber, where they're both green, because you mentioned you like green, so I'll go with
Yep,
that.
that sounds like a good one.
uh,
Good guy saver.
if you were hired, if you were hired to act in the next Star Wars movie or show, what would you want your character to be like?
I guess I'd like him to be pretty outgoing and witty and funny and but there and because that's probably some of the qualities that I don't I wouldn't consider myself to have right now. Is I'm pretty laid back, quiet, background kind of guy. So if I were going to be in the movies, I guess I want some sort of personality that was kind of the opposite of the way that I am in real life, which I guess would be
Would you be
outgoing and
like a
fun, witty.
smuggler, a Jedi, a pilot, a soldier?
I think I'd want to be like a smuggler. I think I'd want to be like a
Okay,
smuggler. Yeah, I don't think I'd want to be like a Luke Skywalker. I think I'd want to be more the witty, probably similar to a Han Solo, somebody who is badass and can win in a battle, but also has some is witty and funny and has a little bit
okay.
more character.
Who is your least favorite Star Wars character, and what specific?
I'm sure that a handful of people will say it. Like Jar Jar never really resonated with me, and I think part of it was just as soon as once I was hearing him for so long, I got tired of it. It was funny at first, maybe and unique as a character, but it was something where I'm not trying to jump on the bandwagon, but it was got a little bit annoying, listen to it, and might have been one of the things that turned me off from the first three episodes. I saw them, but they weren't something that I remembered much after the fact. And so I've had to go back recently, like in the last, 3 or 6 months and watch. I donate blood, probably every 2 weeks, and they have, Disney and Netflix there. And so that's usually what I'll do is that's where I'll get my Star Wars watching time is where I'm sitting in a chair doing like a 2 hour blood donation.
Okay, I think now with Disney era stuff, probably more characters to not like. So maybe the Jar Jar Web will stand
Yeah.
out to some of these new characters that are less terrible.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, who's your favorite bounty hunter in Star Wars Galaxy?
I think this one again because I just started researching, who played the bounty hunter from like a signed CCG perspective, and so I think the one I'm gonna pick. I think my favorite, by way of being a badass, that I thought was a badass was IG-88. I just liked him because he was a machine and he just like he was built for war kind of thing. So he's probably the
Okay.
one visually that I always loved the most. Most recently, I've been interested in Dengar. I'm not sure how you're supposed to say his name,
Okay.
but I started looking in to see if anybody had like a signed, Dengar card. And what I learned in the last week was that it's not possible or extremely like highly unlikely because back I think he passed away within like a year or something of the Dagobah set being released. And at the time, even though the card was released, it sounds like there was not any reassurance about who the actor was that actually played him. So even if you had a card, nobody knew at the time, or it was disputed possibly, who it was that played him. So I think I forget what his name is, Bush, something Bush. I forget. I just looked it up. But anyway, so I think he's interesting to me, partly because I don't know a lot about him, almost like the Dr. Evazan kind of situation where I'd like to know a little bit more about Dangar's backstory. Maybe he looks all bandaged up, looks like he's been through, maybe some tough times. So I don't know. IG-88 probably for physical and
we'll go with that. Let's go. Which Star Wars moment has the most emotional impact on you, and why?
I guess the one emotionally that resonated most with me, and maybe now more so since I've got two little boys myself, is probably the scene with, Darth Vader, Anakin, and Luke after Luke's beat him and his helmet's all busted up and he's laying there on the ground and they're just looking at each other and having their final moments. I think that one that one resonates with me. A little bit different now since I'm a dad. I think I look at a lot of things from a different perspective, having a couple little boys. So,
right.
Moments in movies maybe that didn't, resonate with me in the past. Now, I see them from different perspectives, and so, sometimes they stick with you a little bit more.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Who is your favorite Rebel Alliance member, and what inspires you about their dedication to the cause?
So I think I'd have to pick Harrison Ford, Han Solo, and I think because I like the story that he was originally hired, to help, and the cause kind of drew him in. He became more and more part of it, and embraced it. So I feel like he was a character that, one of those typical, heroes that's only in it for the money, but then gets drawn in with the relationships that he builds and eventually becomes one of the key cogs in the, driving force, behind the, in this case, the rebels. So I'd have to say,
okay. Which Star Wars character, and I'll also accept species or alien race, would you want as your loyal companion?
So I think this one would probably be between R2D2 and Chewie, and Chewie maybe more for the muscle and being there to be kind of like a personal bodyguard. R2D2, I feel like I would pick his ability to manipulate interfaces and stuff over like C3PO's billion languages or whatever he is. I think I'd take R2D2's skill set. I think that one would probably come into play for me more than C3PO, and so I'd have to pick R2 over Chewie too. I feel like Chewie would be kind of that muscle on my side, but I'll take R2.
R2 more practical for the guardrail.
I think so.
What is your most prized Star Wars collectible?
I think by value, it'd probably have to be.
Well, I just mean by what you value.
Yeah. So I think the one that probably means the most to me would be my signed Darth Maul AI, just because my wife surprised me and took me up for a trip to meet him at a comic shop in LA, and then we went and grabbed lunch. So it was just kind of like a nice day date, and it resulted in me getting, actually at the time was the first in-person CCG signing for my collection. So there are, multiple reasons why that one is probably going to be, one of the ones I don't ever let go, is because I was there in person, got to meet him, Ray Park, super nice guy, and I forced my wife, or my wife did it on her own, even though she doesn't know anything about Star Wars. So it was extra special, probably for that reason, because she did it with me, sat in the line with all the other folks, and
Okay. If you could have any one collectible item ever for Star Wars, so this could be something you don't have or something like the dream item of your trophy list, what would that be?
So again, I'm not a big prop person. I don't collect 8x10s, 11x17s. So it would probably be relatively boring and within the CCG realm. And so what I can think would be my grail right now, really probably unachievable grail is I've heard that there's one Obi-Wan with lightsaber signed by Alec Guinness floating around somewhere. And so that would probably be the one that I'd pick as my grail. If I could have one, it'd be I only know of one. I don't know if there's more, but a signed Obi-Wan
Okay.
with lightsaber CCG.
What is your biggest regret from your collecting journey?
Thankfully, I don't have any yet that's me saying, man, I wish I would have held this, because I'm more of a buyer only. I don't really sell anything once it gets into my collection. So thankfully, it's not that, because I know there's a lot of people that have regrets out there about getting rid of something, either for cheap or back in the day, and now they wish they had it back. I guess my regret would be not sticking with the collecting during that transition when I was going to college, just because things were so cheap. I kind of stopped collecting before like the Reflections 2, Reflections 3 came out, so I didn't get a chance to like buy any of that stuff when it was, MSRP. And so I wish that there were some times when I would have just, during that period, 2000 to 2005, that I would have, picked up the collecting a little bit more than I did. I did kind of some onesie twosie stuff, but I wish I would have stayed with it past, like, I don't know, Jabba's Palace, somewhere in the Jabba's Palace, I think, range is when I stopped actually buying products, myself.
Okay. So, as we wrap here, is there anything that you want other collectors to know? Things that you're on the hunt for, things that you are always interested in buying or gathering, or what your niche is. What is it that you want to tell other collectors about your collection and your buying habits?
Yeah, so I think there will be a handful of us out there that'll say the same thing in the signed CCG group, but I'm always interested in entertaining offers, of people trying to sell signed CCG collections, especially from those who have, deceased. Those ones are obviously, what's out there is what's out there. So I'm always looking for, I don't really need Harrison Ford. I sent in 7 Fords over the last, 2 years of my own cards. So I think I'm done trying to get Ford on CCG. Fisher, I've got 2, but I'd like to get a couple more Fisher on character cards. And then I've got no Hamels, but I'm really banking and hoping that Hamill does another signing, and I'll just probably send in, 5 to 7 cards for Hamill, almost regardless of price, unless it's like outrageous. I kind of have just come to terms with the fact that I'm going to spend a boatload of money trying to get Ford on C, or I mean Hamill on CCG. So yeah, that would be it. I'm in the TCG stuff right now to kind of tide me over, which isn't, probably doesn't have as big a following, not as popular. One thing that surprised me in TCG, for those that don't know, is there's a base card and a foil card of every single card out of like all 10 sets, which I didn't understand. Decipher has, Reflections 1, 2, 3, and then the Endor for foils. The TCG side by Wizards of the Coast, they made a foil copy and a non-foil copy of all the cards out of 10 sets. So that's what a master said. I only know one person that has a foil from all 10 sets. And so that's probably something that if I do pursue that, it's going to take 20 years. And a lot of people have tried it, from my understanding, and given up on it just because it's, it seems like almost like lost cause. It's super expensive. I feel like some of the prices, are at or above Decipher CCG prices, which I found, bizarre in that I just don't feel like there's as big a following, nearly as big a following on the TCG side. So I thought maybe prices would be cheaper when they were let go. But I guess the rarity there, it's kind of blown my mind. I thought I'd be able to maybe get rid of some Decipher CCG doubles and almost get all of the TCG cards, by that way. I figured the Decipher stuff would be worth 10 to 1, the TCG stuff, and that's not what I'm finding. So a little bit surprising. But those are the 2 areas right now, I guess, my collection is focused on.
Well, that's awesome. Well, again, we're going to wrap this up, but Tyson, this has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
For anybody else who's looking to connect with him, that's what he's looking for. He's looking for the autograph. So if you got autographs tucked away, looking to sell, or interested in that, hit up Tyson. Thanks so much for spending the time.
Yep. Thanks, Kyle.